child. And this is video of the couple just before he went into space. Bresnik says that Mom and Abigail are doing just fine, and we're going to have a live report from Florida in just a little bit. Well, MSNBC is the place for politics, and a major victory for Senate Democrats who have secured the 60 votes they need to move the health reform debate now to the Senate floor. The bill they're proposing would require every American to carry health insurance. It would require many large employers to cover employees or else face a fine. It would bar insurers from rejecting coverage based on pre-existing conditions. And the cost? $848 billion. For more now on what this means for your coverage as well as your wallet, I'm joined live from Washington by Shara Toplitz, staff writer for Roll Call. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Alex. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here because I'm curious about the changes that most Americans would see if this bill were to become law.
Well, let's start with the differences between the Senate bill and the House bill. The Senate bill is unique in that it gives states an opt-out provision. So states will be able to opt out of this plan. I think that's very interesting politically because basically it lets Congress pass the buck to all of the state legislatures to say, why don't you decide? And therefore kind of sets up a unique system. If you're in, let's say, Nebraska and your state opts out, you can say, well, I'm moving to Kansas and I'm going to get in on the plan that way.
Okay. Let's talk about how the Senate would be paying for this bill. It would cut the growth of Medicare. It would levy a tax on expensive health plans. It would increase taxes on couples making more than $250,000 a year. And it would impose a 5% tax on elective cosmetic procedures. This is a tax being called the Bo tax for Botox. The House passed a different health bill. Are the provisions the same?
No, they're not. They're actually unique kind of differences between both of the House bills and how they're going to pay. You might remember that the House bill actually had a price tag of $1 trillion. It's a little bit more expensive. I think Democrats are really counting on, and the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, made calculations along these lines, that health care will decline in costs over the next couple of years, and that's where we'll see the savings in the overall budget. They're basically making a gamble here by setting the system in place, by putting this health care plan into place over the next 10 years, that health care will kind of come down in cost for the American family. Okay,
well, speaking of cost, Senator McCain says Americans are going to be paying for health reform long before they see any sort of benefit. Let's listen to what he said.
I don't think Americans really understand the scam that's going on here. The 1st of January, according to this plan, Americans will begin experiencing cuts in Medicare and increases in taxes 40 days from now. But then it'll be 208 weeks and 1,460 days before any benefits from the legislation come about. I think Bernie Madoff went to jail for this kind of behavior.
So if this bill becomes law, does this kind of a delay cause political backlash for the Democrats?
Yeah, it's kind of like one Republican senator called it. It's like political layaway in a lot of ways. Basically, because the bill will not go into effect to 2014, people will start having to pay for the bill and start, with taxes and that kind of thing. So, people will have to start paying for it before it goes into effect. He's not far off in his assessment.
So overall, Shira, who are the big winners and losers in this particular, the Senate health proposal?
I think the big winner is the Senate Democratic moderates. Actually, let me take that back. I think Harry Reid is probably the biggest winner here because he could pull the Senate Democratic moderates, people like Mary Landrieu, Blanche Lincoln, Ben Nelson over to his corner. I think it was definitely a win for him today. He had to do some deal making. He had to really work, especially with Senator Mary Landrieu, to get her vote. But I think he was probably the biggest winner.
Okay. Shira Toplitz with Roll Call. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Still ahead, keeping you safe from the swine flu this holiday season. What simple measures can you take? You're watching MSNBC Sunday.
Time to get the light.